Summary of Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. The first part of Morte d'Arthur is about how King Arthur of Camelot was born. King Arthur needs to find a child to his rule, and when they come to visit the court, he has his eye on Igraine, who is married to the Duke of Cornwall. He comes up with a plan with the wizard Merlin to attack the Duke's court while Igraine is away at another castle. During the battle, the Duke is killed, and Arthur, who looks like the Duke thanks to Merlin, sneaks into the castle. Igraine doesn't know that her husband has died until after she has slept with Arthur. Merlin asks Arthur, in exchange for his help, to give him the child he will have with Igraine. Arthur and Igraine get married because Igraine thinks it's best for the country. Igraine has a boy, Arthur. Merlin sends him to live with Sir Ector and his son Kay to be raised. After Arthur dies, the country is in trouble because it doesn't have a king. Merlin tells the Archbishop of Canterbury about his plan to put the magic sword Excalibur in a stone by the big church in London. All the lords get together and try to pull out the sword, but none of them can. Sir Ector takes Kay and Arthur with him to London for a game on New Year's Day. Kay has just become a knight, but he left his sword at home. He asks Arthur to help him get it. Arthur is on his way home when he sees the sword in the stone. He pulls it out easily. But when he gets back, Ector recognizes it, and he and Arthur go back to the stone so Arthur can show that he pulled it out on his own. Everyone there agrees that Arthur should be King of England, and soon he is. But it doesn't take long for other kings to doubt such a young King of England and wonder if they can take advantage of Arthur's ignorance to get some land for themselves. Merlin tells Arthur about the danger and suggests that he ask for help from two kings, King Ban and King Bors, and then fight in their wars to repay the favor. Together, the kings come close to beating King Lot and his friends, but they stop when Merlin tells Arthur to stop while they're ahead. Then Arthur's men beat Ban and Bors's enemies. While abroad, Arthur meets Guinevere, who will later become his queen. He also meets and sleeps with Margaux, who is the wife of Lot and the father of Gawain, Gareth, Agravain, and Gaheris, but Arthur doesn't know that she is his half-sister. She will have a son by Arthur named Mordred, who will kill his father and turn the country upside down. Merlin tells Arthur to put all the children born in May, Mordred's birth month, on a ship that will sink. Arthur does this, but Mordred is the only one to survive. Many people in the kingdom are angry with Arthur because the other children died for no reason. Arthur does what he can to make his country stronger by forming the Fellowship of the Round Table. In this group, dozens of heroes sit around a big table and promise to do good deeds, show mercy to their enemies, and protect women wherever they find them. Arthur will need this group, especially since Merlin is no longer in the story. He falls in love with Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, who learns magic from him and then locks him in a cave for good when she gets tired of him and afraid of his power. Arthur also has to deal with his sister Morgan Le Fay, who is a witch and always tries to kill him or trick him into doing what she wants. Even though Arthur beat Lot and his men, he will soon have to deal with more danger when Emperor Lucius of Rome asks him to pay payment. Arthur refuses because he thinks this is a shameful request that would threaten his rule. Instead, he takes his knights to the mainland of Europe, where they have many adventures, including killing a dangerous giant, before beating the Roman troops and coming home victorious. One of Arthur's knights, Lancelot du Lac, does really well in Rome. He also has a number of adventures back in England, which show that he is the best knight in the world. Every year on Pentecost, the Knights of the Round Table get together to talk about their experiences and get ready to go on more tasks and adventures. An unknown squire shows up to court one year to try to prove himself. No one knows who he is, and he's not dressed well, so Arthur puts him to work in the kitchen. Kay makes fun of the boy by calling him Beaumains or Fair Hands, but the other knights tell Kay to stop. When a girl named Lynette comes to court asking for a knight to save her sister Lyonesse from the Knight of the Red Lawns, Beaumains agrees to do this task. Lancelot chases after him on his horse, and he asks Lancelot to be made a knight. Once he tells Lancelot who he really is, that Beaumains is really Gareth of Orkney, Gawain's brother, Lancelot agrees. But no one else knows who Gareth really is, and Lynette keeps yelling at him about his dirty clothes and lack of royal background, even after Gareth kills many knights and shows he is very strong. Gareth finally beats the Knight of the Red Loops and wins Lyonesse. But Lynette won't let Gareth sleep with Lyonesse until he shows himself at the Pentecost battle. After that, she lets them get married. The story is then told from the point of view of Tristram, son of King Meliodas, who is not part of King Arthur's court for a big part of the book. Out of anger, Tristram's wife tries to poison him, but he forgives her, which proves his knightly honor, and his father sends him out of the country. When he grows up, he proves himself by helping King Mark of Cornwall fight King Anguish of Ireland and by fighting a knight of the Round Table named Marhaus. Tristram wins, but he gets hurt in the process. Anguish's family takes care of him without knowing who he is. He falls in love with La Belle Isaud, the king's daughter. Soon, Isaud's mother finds out who Tristram really is, and even though Anguish knows that Tristram had to protect Mark because of his honor, he still sends Tristram away from his court. Tristram stays at King Mark's court, but when he and Mark both fall in love with Isaud, who loves Tristram, Mark becomes incredibly jealous and starts to plan Tristram's downfall. Mark plans to tell Tristram to fight La Belle Isaud and win so that Mark himself can marry her. Tristram does this as a good servant of the king, even though he and Isaud still love each other. One of Mark's knights tells the king that they both like Isaud, and the king locks Isaud away. Tristram runs away to the land of King Howell, where he quickly falls in love with Isaud La Blanche-Mains and marries her. He ends up leaving Isaud and teaming up with Lamorac de Gallis, a knight at Arthur's court, to beat a tyrant. Back at Arthur's court, Brunner le Noir, La Cote Mailtail, another unknown knight, comes to court without being seen. He shows himself with his knightly skills and is made a knight of the Round Table. Several knights of the Round Table meet Tristram and joust with him. Tristram still doesn't want to be made a knight of the Round Table because he doesn't think he's good enough, and Lancelot is mad at him because he found out Tristram cheated on La Belle Isaud. Tristram tries to sneak back to Mark's court, but he is caught again. After fighting with Isaud, he runs away into the bush, where for a while he seems to lose his mind. He is eventually brought back to court as a crazy person, but Isaud eventually figures out who he is. When Mark finds out who Tristram is, he kicks him out of court. Tristram is finally made a knight of the Round Table after showing himself on the battlefield in Arthur's games. Mark hears about this and gets jealous, so he sneaks into England, but not before killing two of his men who wouldn't help him kill Tristram. Mark then meets a few men from Arthur's court, but he hides who he is. Dinadan finally finds out who he is, and Mark is taken to Arthur. Mark agrees to Arthur's request and takes Tristram back to court with him. At the same time, Gawain and his brothers lose a competition to Lamorac. Out of jealousy, they kill their mother Margaux, who was in love with Lamorac, and then Lamorac himself. Back at Mark's court, Mark has to ask Tristram to help him fight his enemies. Mark's brother also does well, which makes Mark angry, so he kills him. But the brother's son, Alisander, and his wife get away. Mark still tries to kill Tristram, but Lancelot is now on Tristram's side, and he and Tristram are able to lock Mark up for a while. Tristram is free to go on his own adventures, so he teams up with other heroes like Gareth, Palomides, and Dinadan to go on a number of tasks. But Palomides also loves La Belle Isaud, and when Tristram wins a game and gets a lot of attention, Palomides is almost sick with envy. They get ready to fight for their honor, but Tristram is hurt and can't go up against Palomides. Lancelot, meanwhile, has an affair with Queen Guinevere, to whom he is loyal throughout the book. He is tricked into sleeping with Elaine of Corbin, who gives birth to Galahad, a knight who will be even more famous than his father. Later, Galahad shows up at court without telling anyone who he is, but when he pulls another sword out of a magical stone, it is clear that he is more holy than any of the other heroes. With a lot of pomp, his entry marks the beginning of the search for the Sangreal, or Holy Grail. This is a vessel that can give endless food and drink and reveal spiritual secrets to the person who is holy enough. Arthur is sad that so many of his heroes are going on the quest because he knows that most of them won't be able to complete it. Galahad's experiences on the quest are described first. He saves several damsels and frees several castles from evil heroes. Percival, another knight on the quest, tries to find Galahad but has to deal with his own tasks, which involve fights and temptations from the devil in different forms. Lancelot faces similar pressures, and even though he fights well as always, he is told by several people that he will never reach the Holy Grail because of his earthly sins, like sleeping with Guinevere and being proud. Sir Bors also has to go through a number of spiritual tests. At first, he has to decide between helping a woman and helping his brother Lionel. He picks the lady, which shows his honor as a knight, but Lionel gets angry and, after being possessed by the devil, tries to kill his brother. But Bors is able to get away and join Percival. They find Galahad, and the two of them go on many adventures together. They meet Percival's sister on a magical ship. There, they find a holy sword and scabbard that are connected to Joseph of Arimathea, a biblical person and one of the first people to guard the Holy Grail. Galahad was destined to get this sword and sheath. The three heroes eventually get to the castle of the maimed king, Pelham, where Galahad heals the king and makes a prediction come true. Another king puts them in jail, but the Holy Grail makes sure they stay fed and healthy. When the king dies, Galahad is made king of the land. Galahad finally gets the chance to go to heaven and see the spiritual secrets of the Holy Grail after a long time. Percival becomes a holy man and dies soon after, while Bors goes back to Arthur's court, where many of the original knights of the Round Table have died. Back at court, Lancelot soon forgets his promise to become a better person, and he and Guinevere get back together. Soon, though, a jealous knight named Pinel tries to poison Gawain at Guinevere's feast, but instead kills another knight named Patrise. Everyone thinks it's Guinevere, but Lancelot protects her against Pinel. There are several events, and Lancelot does very well in all of them. At one point, he stays with a lord named Bernard and the lord's daughter, Elaine LeBlanc. Elaine falls in love with Lancelot, but Lancelot stays true to Guinevere, and Elaine dies of sadness. After another big event, there is peace for a while in the country. Soon, though, a knight named Meleagrance tries to use Lancelot's departure from court to take Guinevere, who he loves, away from him. Lancelot is caught and put in jail, but thanks to a damsel's help, he gets out and fights Meleagrance and kills him. But Agravain, another knight, is jealous of Lancelot and plans to do something bad to him. Everyone at court knew about Lancelot's affair with Guinevere except for Arthur. Agravain finally tells Arthur the truth and shows him by surrounding Guinevere and Lancelot when they are in bed one night. Lancelot gets away, and Guinevere gets a death sentence. Lancelot rides up and saves Guinevere from being burned at the stake, but in the chaos he kills Gareth and Gaheris by accident. Their brother Gawain has always been faithful to Lancelot, but this is the last straw, and he vows to kill Lancelot. Arthur decides to fight against his best hero and best friend, which makes him sad. At one point, Lancelot brings Guinevere back to Arthur from his tower. Arthur would be happy to end the civil war, but Gawain won't be happy until Lancelot is killed. Lancelot and some of his knights flee to Benwick, and Gawain, Arthur, and their knights go there to lay siege. While they are fighting, Mordred finds out that Arthur has died. He makes himself king and marries Guinevere. Even when he finds out that Arthur is still living, he won't give up his job. Arthur and Gawain must go back. Gawain is badly hurt and on his deathbed, he tells Arthur that he forgives Lancelot and that he is sorry for causing the war in the first place. Arthur is told to sign a truce with Mordred until Lancelot can come back to fight for him. But at the last minute, an accident cancels the truce, and Arthur and Mordred kill each other. Then Lancelot comes back, but it's too late. Guinevere goes to live in a convent, and many of the other knights give up fighting and become holy men or hermits. The legend of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table comes to an end when Constantine becomes king.
About the author. We don't know much about Malory's early life before he became a knight in 1441 and started working in public, including as a member of parliament. After 1450, though, he seemed to turn into a professional criminal. Among other things, he was accused of murder, theft, and rape. Malory got out of jail twice and was pardoned more than once, which shows how strong he was when he was a part of the gentry. Malory probably wrote Le Morte d'Arthur while he was in prison between 1469 and 1470. Some of the prisoners were allowed to use the nearby library, where Malory could have gathered his sources. He died a year after he got out of prison.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.